take a look at skills a little bit. The process, there's a few different versions of this. I just happen to like this one. It's from Gloria Gary. The process for learning to do something that you need to practice and become skilled at is you get familiar with what it is you're doing, you kind of comprehend it. Then conscious effort is defined as sort of trying to do it, but not necessarily being 100% successful. Conscious action is you can do the thing, but you really have to think hard. You're kind of paying attention to every step. Proficiency, you're starting to get pretty good at it. And then unconscious competence is you do the right thing without even thinking about it. So if we think about, again, learning to drive, since that's the theme today, familiarization is just kind of learning what all the controls are in the car. Comprehension is kind of understanding what all the steps are for driving. Conscious effort is when, like my dad, when I was learning, took me to a parking lot away from any other car on like a Sunday afternoon. And I wasn't necessarily doing it right, but I wasn't going to run into anything. Conscious action was about the point where he'd actually let me go on a street and I could like drive around the block or something. Proficiency is about the point where you're pretty good and you can probably take the driver's test. And then unconscious competence is most of us have probably been driving for a long time. Anybody ever had that experience where you drive home from work or someplace and you get home and you realize you totally don't remember the drive home at all? Anybody had that one? That is what unconscious competence feels like. Anybody ever done the thing where you were supposed to stop on the way home and pick up dinner or dry cleaning or whatever, and you totally forgot and found yourself in your driveway anyway? The benefit of unconscious competence is it's great. You don't have to allocate a lot of time or attention or memory to doing it. The difficulty with it is that it's sometimes hard to undo. And so this is one of my favorite studies. This is your brain on Tetris. Anybody played Tetris, the game where you have the little falling pieces? Any mobile game will kind of act as a stand-in for this, but or any kind of little game like that. So what this is this is a PET scan which measures glucose metabolic rate. It's positron emission tomography, I think. And what they did is on the left is the colors are loosely a proxy for how much glucose is being learned. So it's kind of how effortful it is. And I'm simplifying things, but it's a decent explanation for what the colors mean. So when it's more colorful, it's more effortful for somebody to do. So the brain on the left is somebody playing Tetris for the very first time. And the brain on the right is that same person after they've been playing Tetris for several weeks. This person is probably much better at Tetris after they've been playing it for several weeks. I think they certainly are. They've gotten practice. They don't have to think about it as hard. So it's not only that their performance goes up, but the actual level of effort for doing a thing goes down. Now, the interesting place for this with skills is how much practice do we need to have people get to in order to get to that feeling of ease and kind of stuff. And it's probably not realistic to get everybody to that place in a training class, but the question is, how far along that path are we getting people? It does factor into muscle memory, yeah, absolutely. And muscle memory is a little bit of a misnomer in that you can have kind of cognitive muscle memory, if it makes sense. It's not just psychomotor reactions. It can be that it's that level of automaticity or automaticness of a thing. So you can do it without kind of thinking about it. And they've done research with chimpanzees where they find that actually the place in your brain where that memory gets stored gets moved. So if you were learning something in martial arts the first time, it gets stored in a more active place in your memory and you've got more of this sort of red, fiery thing around learning it. But then once you've practiced it 1,000 times or whatever it is, it actually, the location of storage changes and it runs without you having to allocate a lot of your conscious attention to it. And this is a good thing because otherwise we'd never be able to, if we had to pay as much attention to driving a car the 1,000th time as we did the first time, we'd never be able to do anything. It would all be too hard. We need this kind of facility and ease. But what do you think happens when you're used to feeling like the person on the right and then we change something? So anybody done the thing where you drive and you have to try to drive in a country where they drive on the other side of the road? Anybody done that? I can't do it. Every time we make a left turn, I think we're going to die. So yeah, the difficulty of doing that is you're going from this very practiced feeling of driving on the right back over to the left. And in some ways it's worse because you're having to fight all of these automatic impulses. So that happens a lot in organizations and workplace, right? Where we change a thing. Here's the process you've been using for literally years, and we're going to update the system and we're going to change this process. How do you think people feel about it to go from being the person on the right to being the person on the left? What's going to make it better for them? Like, what's the thing that's going to make them start to feel a little bit more comfortable because we've now made them feel uncomfortable? Yeah, practice mapping the old to the new, but really, like, they're going to have to practice it a few times in order to kind of get back to that comfortable point. We're not going to get them all the way back, but if we can at least leave them on an upward trajectory of it feeling a little bit better. And so, one of the things I think is a really common problem in skills practice and so forth is we just don't spend enough time with people practice stuff once and then in the training class and get sent out into the world. And that doesn't always happen, but I've seen it a lot. And so the question of how much practice does somebody need in order to feel comfortable with something